Welcome back to another episode of Young Adult Problems. Guys, yesterday I was scrolling through the Young Adult Problems Instagram and I decided to check my DMs for fun, and someone had actually sent me a DM about the podcast. It was super sweet. It made my whole day and it just made me really happy. So before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a moment and be really cheesy and say thank you so much for listening to the podcast, for supporting the podcast, for leaving such nice comments and letting me know that you're listening to it and rating it on Spotify and just everything that you've done to let me know how it's impacted you and that you're listening to it and your opinions and everything like that. It seriously means so much to me. When I started this podcast, I seriously did not know if anyone was going to listen. So just thank you so much. Thank you for supporting. And yes, okay, enough with my cheesiness. Let's move on to today's topic. The other day, I was kind of having a hard time brainstorming new podcast topics. I mean, I have a whole list of things that I want to talk about, but I was having a hard time resonating with one in the moment. So my brain was getting kind of fried because I couldn't figure out exactly what it was that I wanted to talk about. And I was kind of having podcaster's block, if you will, if that's a thing. But then as I was having this kind of brain fry moment, someone had sent me a text, and the text was a video of me, my freshman year of college. I don't even know what I was doing in the video. I was doing some yoga pose on a bench while someone was saying goodnight to me. So totally random video. But in the background of the video was this girl I used to be friends with. And I was basically joined at the hip with this friend my freshman year because we were new to college. We didn't really know anyone else, but we knew each other. So naturally, it was just easy for us to go to each other every time we wanted to hang out with somebody or every time we wanted to eat with somebody at the dining commons. And because of that, we became pretty close that year. I mean, I had known her for 7 years prior, but it wasn't until college that we really became close. But eventually we had a friendship fallout after freshman year. And since then, I mean, it's been 3 to 4 years. I have not spoken to her once. I don't know, just seeing that video really unlocked a lot of memories for me. And it got me thinking a lot about the friendship fallout. So I kind of want to dive more into different friendship fallouts that I've experienced and why they happened and how they happened and all of that. Because I'm sure we've all experienced at least one fallout with a friend. Not all friendships last forever. Fallouts are a normal part of life, but sometimes it just feels so weird because you think that that particular person is going to be a part of your life forever. You don't foresee a friendship fallout ever happening until it does. And then you go from friends to complete strangers in a matter of weeks or even days. You go from talking to that person every single day, telling them everything. They know everything about you. You know everything about them. You go from that to having no clue what they're up to or what they're doing or how they're doing. And I think it's just so interesting to me how fast people come and go in your life. So I think the main reason that most fallouts happen is simply because people just naturally grow apart. That's where I've experienced most of my friendship fallouts. People just get busy with life. People's lives are changing at different rates and they're changing constantly. So much so that sometimes there's not enough room for you to include that old friend into your life anymore, or vice versa. They might be so distracted with everything new that's going on in their lives that they might not have time for you anymore. And that's not in a toxic way of any sorts. It's not like, oh, I don't want to make time for them anymore. It's just that maybe they've moved far away or they've taken on a new job and they just get distracted with all of these new events happening in their life. Simultaneously, you're getting distracted with everything that's happening in your life. Maybe you're also taking on a new hobby or a task or doing something new. Whatever it may be, we tend to get distracted with what's directly around us. So if there's a lot of new activity happening around us, it can be hard to focus our attention on, that other person. And so The rare times that you do remember to be like, oh, hey, let me reach out to them, see how they're doing. The conversation may not last long. And the periods in which you guys do talk to each other or do text each other become more distant each time. You might text each other every few months to catch up, to be like, hey, I'm still here and I still care about you. But then those texts get more and more scarce. It could go from texting each other for a few months to maybe once every 6 months or once a year to simply just texting each other happy birthday when you remember, you know? And eventually, you might not talk at all. It's not like anything toxic has happened. It's not like there's any bad blood in between you guys. It's simply the fact that life changes and people grow apart, and it's completely natural and it's not a bad thing. But sometimes when you look back on, the fact that you naturally grew apart from someone, it can feel a little bit sad because, again, it's like you go from being really great friends with that person and telling them everything to being complete strangers. So maybe nothing necessarily bad has happened to get you to that point of being complete strangers, but when you look back on it, it's not like a positive thing to think about. It's not like you're happy that you're not friends anymore. And then in the future, if you finally have the chance to reconnect again or start up a conversation or have a quick chat, it kind of feels awkward and very surface level because it just feels like you're talking to a stranger. Like I said, this is where a lot of my friendship fallouts have happened. I've made friends who I've cared so deeply about and who've made such a great impact on my life, who've taught me how to grow, who've taught me how to become my own person, who've introduced me to new hobbies, who've stood up for me if someone else was calling me out for being anxious or being quiet. Those are the people and the memories that I won't forget because they've made such a positive impact on my life. But simply because we've grown apart, we went to different colleges, now we don't talk anymore. But that doesn't change how much I still care about the person and still wonder how they're doing. Like, that's just how life is, and people just naturally grow apart like that. But friendship fallouts don't always happen that way. They're not always an elegant, graceful goodbye. Sometimes you choose to walk away from that friendship. And you do so in a subtle way because maybe it's not a big enough thing to have a full-on argument about, or maybe you don't like confrontation and so you just walk away instead. And you could decide to drop that friendship for a number of reasons. As I said, life changes. So maybe you outgrow each other. Maybe you now have different mindsets and different goals and evolved personalities that may have once been compatible, but now they're complete opposites and they clash, and that leads you to not necessarily vibing with that person anymore. If you guys have different energies that don't match, maybe you start to feel a little irked or a little annoyed that, they're acting a certain type of way. Just because you have your differences in personality. Not everyone has to get along, and it's okay to be annoyed with someone or to not agree with someone's views or opinions or the way they're acting. But instead of sticking to that friendship and sort of starting to create a toxic environment, whether it's something that's between you guys and you can feel the tension of, oh, we're not really getting along anymore, or if it's just something that's one-sided and it's in your head and you're like, oh, I don't really like this person anymore, like I think I've just outgrown them, then the solution to this could be just to walk away from the friendship and to not decide to pursue it anymore because it's just not worth pursuing. Maybe it's taking up a lot of your time, your energy, your mental health, and that's just not something you want to deal with. Maybe you feel like the friendship wasn't good because the other person wasn't treating you right. You might have felt used or neglected, and instead of confronting them, you just wanted to start fresh and find someone new and find someone who really did care about you. There are tons of reasons why you could choose to walk away subtly, but whatever the reason is, you do. And that's another way that fallouts happen. For one of my friendships, I wasn't really vibing with it anymore. I wasn't really vibing with the person, and that's because we started to have different energies and different outlooks on life. My friend had this outlook of like, I want to meet a bunch of new friends. I want to hang out with whoever I can, and I want to have fun, which is a totally fine outlook. But that came at the cost of my friendship because I was starting to feel neglected and I was kind of used as a backup friend. And in that sense, we had different mindsets of what we wanted in a friendship. And I wasn't really happy with the way I was being treated or the fact that all conversations were about her. And so instead of being confrontational about it, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna slowly back away from this friendship. I didn't really feel the need to communicate with her my feelings or how it was affecting me because at that point I was just like, my brain was like, nope, we're moving on in life now. We're finding new people. We're finding people who care about you. But that's also not always the best way because maybe the other person doesn't understand your perspective or doesn't understand why you ever walked away and they'll be left wondering, why did this happen? I think communication plays a big part in fallouts and choosing to walk away without saying anything. It could be the safe option and it's not always a bad thing. Maybe you're totally done with this person and you don't care and you just want to drop them out of your lives. But sometimes the lack of communication can cause confusion and maybe there's a misunderstanding on why you walked away from the friendship and maybe you have a misunderstanding on why your friend is acting a certain type of way. So I think choosing to walk away subtly was fine in some cases for my friendships, but other times they were kind of a problem. Because I feel like some friendships are just too important to throw away over, a period of disagreement and lack of communication because you truly care about that person at the end of the day, even though in the moment you're kind of like, ugh, I don't really know if I want to be with this person anymore. So going back to the friendship that I was talking about that I had in college, I think the biggest issue with that friendship fallout was communication. We both decided to walk away subtly from that friendship, and we had never spoken a word about what was bothering us because we were both not confrontational people. Even though we were so close and we had so many good memories, I think one blocker of our friendship was the fact that we didn't really like talking about our deep emotions to each other. Like that was one thing that was kind of off limits. And so when the friendship fallout started to happen and we kind of started to outgrow each other, we had a misunderstanding that was never clearly communicated. On my end, I felt like my friend basically kind of pushed me to the side. She had recently joined a sorority because she wanted to find a community in college. And I was all for that. I was really happy for her when she got into one. Like it was an exciting moment. But then as time moved on, for me, I felt like I was kind of being pushed to the side. I was kind of just getting dropped when she had found someone else. But I had never communicated that, and that was my issue. I had never said anything about that. I can't speak on her behalf of what she felt coming from me because, again, we never communicated that. I can only guess what had took a toll on our friendship. But what I did hear from one of our mutual friends is that I think one of her breaking points was that we had both agreed that we wanted to go to the pumpkin patch together. We had talked about it for a few weeks. But then a week before we had planned to go to the pumpkin patch, I was having a really bad day, and someone had offered to take me to the pumpkin patch solely to try to turn my day around and to just make it a little better and to distract me. I agreed to it because I was having a really bad day. And so that person took me to the pumpkin patch. We had a great time. But I remember before they took me, I specifically said, oh, I actually plan to go to the pumpkin patch with my friend next week. I'll go today with you, but I'll also go with my friend next week, so it shouldn't be a problem. In my head, I didn't think it would be a problem because I had already planned to go with my friend the next week, regardless if I was going to the pumpkin patch with another person the previous week. So I never even brought it up to her. But my friend had seen it on Find My Friends. She saw my location and saw that I was at the pumpkin patch without her. And to her, it looked like I had totally pushed off our plans to go to the pumpkin patch together and decided to go with someone else. And I totally get where that's coming from. I mean, I didn't communicate clearly to her that I was having a bad day and someone invited me, but I still planned on going with her. So to her, it looked like I totally went without her. And from then on out, we continued to not communicate our feelings. We were passive aggressively annoyed at each other because of that, because we each had our annoyances with each other, but we've never explicitly stated them. So with time, we both grew more and more distant from each other until we eventually full on decided to walk away. Which was a little awkward because we did live together, which means that we just completely didn't say anything in passing in the same household, but that was what it was. And I can't speak for everyone, but what a lot of people do when they have anxiety or when they're more introverted is that I think the easier way is just to walk away. Because not everyone's a confrontational person. I am totally the opposite of a confrontational person. I completely hate confrontation. I just don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. But if you both beat around the bush and never say what bothers you, there might never be a rekindling of a friendship. Maybe you don't want a rekindling of the friendship and you're totally fine with it being over without offering any explanation, because maybe you feel like, oh, that person doesn't deserve any explanation. I'm done, I'm over, I'm out. But maybe it's the case where you'll never understand truly where the friendship died out, but you know that there's a mutual feeling of, oh, we're not going to be good friends anymore. And so when things kind of get left unsaid, it might make you think, was this friendship really meant to end, or did it just end because of how we ended it? And so that leads me to my next question. Do you think that all relationships end when they're meant to end? Because I always hear and see a lot of things that say people come and go in your life and relationships end when they're meant to end. And it was done at the right time and the right place, and it's just meant to be. That's what I always hear. But sometimes it doesn't always feel that way to me. A lot of the times, it doesn't feel like that this person was meant to leave my life at the time that they did. Because I still feel like, despite an argument or despite a disagreement or a miscommunication, the friendship would have been fine. And looking back on it, it's like maybe a simple conversation could have changed it all. Because those fallouts were so long ago, they happened 3 to 4 years ago, I was a different person back then. And me right now, I feel like I've learned from the past fallouts and I've learned from those situations. And if I could choose to fix things and have a relationship with these friends today as someone with a different mindset and a different understanding of how to resolve these friendship issues, then I would rekindle the relationship. And so if I feel this way, was the relationship really meant to end? If I still feel this way 3 to 4 years later, was this relationship really meant to end? But then I started thinking, maybe it was meant to end because number one, I learned something out of it. Number two, I don't know if the other person ever wants to rekindle the relationship. Maybe they don't feel the same way at all and they're completely done and over the friendship and they don't care that things were left unsaid and that there wasn't any really closure. They've moved on with life and they're perfectly happy and fine with that. And so, yeah, were the people who left my life really meant to leave my life at the time? Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that relationships end when they're meant to end? I'm conflicted on my answer. Maybe it's just my emotions getting the best of me and making me think that this friendship would be great if it continued, when in reality, the world had a plan for me to get something out of that friendship for just a period of time. Part of me is like, if I attempted to rekindle the relationship, then maybe I'll find out whether that relationship was truly meant to end or not. But part of me is scared because I don't know what the person is thinking or how they're feeling. If they currently do hate me still, then I would not cross those boundaries and be like, hey, we should catch up sometime, or like, how's it going, you know? I think I just have some regret from those situations, regret about how things were left unsaid about how maybe we weren't mature enough to have a real conversation. And so, yeah, if you want to share any experiences with your friendship fallouts, or, tell me what's happened, what you regret, what you don't regret, how you went about it, let me know, because I would love to talk about that and kind of see what you do about it and how you feel about it and how it's affecting your lives today and all of that. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. And I hope to see you guys next week on another episode of Young Adult Problems. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. Like, I can't even express the amount I appreciate you guys. But enough of that for now. I will see you guys next week. Bye.